Hello everyone, I'm back and it's time for another video. This time I have decided to make a better video on working with Forge World resin, since the other one pertained to a model that not many people will ever buy, because, yeah. Honestly, simping to VTubers would probably be cheaper. Unless of course you have a 3D printer, otherwise, go crazy. Not that crazy. So I figured I should do a more in-depth guide on how to work with Forge World. If you want to see more of the overused jokes, watch my previous Warhammer videos. Go on, I can wait. This wasn't a suggestion. It's not like I'm forcing you to do it. Because as of right now, I have way too many Forge World models I need to assemble and paint. Here, let me show you all the unpainted and unassembled Forge World models. We got almost every Warlord Titan option, a Porphyrion, an Astraeus, 4 Relic Dreadnoughts, 2 Thanatars, and a Knight Castigator. Oh boy, that's a lot of models. What? It's not a problem, I swear. So, since I know a lot of you will never buy a Titan, but I do know that most of you who are players of the favorite child or are a custodian player, rip most models of resin, it's time for that in-depth guide so you don't fuck up or ruin your nice expensive model. Since we're working with Forge World resin or 3D printer resin, please for the love of God and all that is sacred to the Omnissiah, wash the damn model. I know washing is something foreign to Warhammer players, but for the love of God, wash it. And take a shower before you go to your next GT, please. My nostrils don't want Nurgle's gift. Here, let me show you. First, get an appropriate container. Pretty much anything will work. Like for larger models, these large storage bins I got from the DIY center. Or even these small containers that you can get from eating Chinese food or Indian takeout. Also, old Tupperware works just fine too. Or even that random container that you thought had dry cookies when you were a child, but instead had sewing equipment and other random crap, and you were disappointed just like your parents are disappointed in you for still playing with toy soldiers. Next, you should get a cleaning solution that doesn't melt resin. The soap that I use for all my models is Dawn dish soap, and now get an old toothbrush or some random soft bristle brush from the hardware store. So first, blow your loaded dish soap all over the container of your choice and fill it with water. Also, side note, have another smaller container filled with soapy water too. This is your uncontaminated container, and the other one is what you're going to put the smaller parts in if you don't want to lose them. You don't really need to do this, but first you should rinse the part that you want to wash. Next, take your brush and dip it into the uncontaminated container. And now scrub the living hell out of the part you're washing. Also, be very careful if it's a small part, you don't want to break it. Once you're done scrubbing, rinse the part again to get rid of any mold release agent that you just scrubbed off. I take this extra step because I don't want the model to fall apart or cause paint chipping. Once you've done that, put it into the soapy container of your choice and repeat this process for all the parts. So it's time to get scrubbing. And scrubbing, and scrubbing, and scrubbing, and scrubbing.
One eternity later.
Now that everything's been scrubbed, let it sit in the soapy container for at least 1 to 2 days, since the warm soapy water should get rid of any mold release you missed, or that's stuck in the crevices. After a few days have passed, here is what leftover mold release looks like on the water's surface. Sometimes there are parts that are stubborn and the mold release doesn't want to come off, which is why I also scrub it again once I finish letting it soak for a day or two. Also, don't forget about the small parts. Now, do an inventory check. We don't want any parts to get lost down the drain when we are dumping the used soapy water, so keep your manuals next to you when you're pulling the parts. Good job, you're done with step 1. Just let all the parts air dry or use a rag. And now, it's time for step 2. Next up is building, but before that, let's go over some safety protocols. First things first, since resin is toxic, get a good mask like an N95 or a respirator. And don't forget your eye protection, because resin flying into your eye hurts. I know from experience. And yes, I know I'm using gamer goggles, but hey, they get the job done. Now that we've gone over the safety protocols, it's time to start liberating the parts from their casting gates. If the parts are a bit just make sure you have a hobby saw, and for smaller casting gates, the cheaper sprue cutters are what you should be using. When cutting parts from the casting gate, make sure you clip or cut a little bit away from the part, or else you risk taking off more than you want. So, be on the lookout for really small casting gates. Also, for parts you know will be hidden, you don't have to be as neat. Next, take your really sharp hobby blade, and make sure you have a lot of them, since resin is tougher than plastic and it'll destroy your blades really fast. Now slowly shave away any excess resin you see due to mold slip. You can either shave it away, or if you want to be really careful, sand it down until it's flush. There also might be some casting flash. Just trim it away with your hobby knife or use your sprue cutters. Congratulations! The most time-consuming part is finished. Now it's time for assembly. Before we do that, what type of glue are you going to use? For smaller models, like a Dreadnought, super glue will work just fine. But if it's a larger model like a Knight, use JB Quick Weld. And if you're going full-on wallet destroyer like a Titan, use normal JB Weld for the large load-bearing parts. For those large load-bearing parts, like the legs of a Knight or a Titan, use some brass pins for extra stability. Also, it's very important to decide what pose you want for your model beforehand, so draw a stick figure or something. So now finally, it's time to start building. Wait, hold on, pause for a second. Now before you start gluing, dry fit the ever-loving shit out of each part, since we don't want to screw up our nice expensive paperweight and or door stopper. You can use either blue tack or poster tack to help with this. Also, because sometimes the parts are warped, so get some hot water and or a low heat heat gun to warm up the resin, so you can bend it back into shape like your non-existent social life. Just for demonstration purposes, here's one of the Theotar's ammo feeds that I straightened out using hot water. Also, don't forget to score the resin with your hobby knife, so the glue will get a better hold on the parts. Okay, now that I remembered that very important step, it's time to get back to building. Okay, there we go, that's the lower half of the Dreadnought done. Also, since a lot of Forge World kits have a lot of interchangeable weapons, I guess I should show you how to do magnetization too. First, you're going to make a small pilot hole using your hobby knife at the very center of where you want to put the magnet. Next, you're going to want to figure out which drill bit has a slightly larger diameter than your magnets. After you figured that out, it's time to slowly start drilling out the pit that the magnet will sit in. And there you go, that's how you magnetize small Forge World kits. For larger models like the Wallet Destroyer, you can use some green stuff to embed the magnets into the part. So take your time and make sure you match up the magnet polarity correctly. And there we go, that's how to magnetize some of the Wallet Destroyer's weapon options. And as you can see, even with my finger blocking direct contact, the magnetic force is still pretty strong. Congratulations, you saved yourself a transportation and weapon option headache. And now you don't need to buy multiple Titans or Dreadnoughts, unless you really want to. Hey, would you look at that, we're almost done. It's time for the final step, which is filling in the air bubbles and gaps on the model. As you can see on the Thanatar's body and the Contemptor's shoulder pad, it looks like there's a few air bubbles. These are remnants from the casting process, but we can fix this problem really easily with some gap filler. I myself personally use Vallejo plastic putty, green stuff, and yes, even super glue works. Just remember to sand it down. Good job, now all the models are assembled and cleaned up, and if you're like me, it may be wise to have some parts and sub-assemblies for painting. So since I don't want this video to run for too long, and also I didn't have enough time, look forward to the future video where Monkey learns how to use an airbrush. And here's a sneak peek for next month's video. It's going to be all about Battletech, and oh my god, I'm going to actually paint some miniatures. Well, that's it for this video guide. I hope you enjoyed watching. Also, I just recently figured out how to stream some of the video games I play correctly, so follow my Twitch to see when I'm streaming video games. Gotta try and stream every Wednesday and Friday. Also, to get updates on what I'm working on, if I'm not neglecting them, then follow either my Instagram or my Twitter account. If you liked this video and want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe or hit the bell to get notified when a new video goes live. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching everyone, and I hope you'll tune in next time.